I'm Alex Jones, your host. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. The moon is made of cheese, and tell your kids that they should be a tranny for career day. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. Excuse me, it's ma'ams, 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 ma'am. I'm Alex Jones, your host. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. 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 We need sex from President Trump. We need sex from President Trump. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. The moon is made of cheese, and tell your kids they should be a tranny for career day. I'm Alex Jones, your host. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. Docs and ding-dongs flopping around. We need sex from President Trump.
Welcome to yet another episode of Recording in Progress, where we slow things down real slow and mellow so we can all record that progress and hopefully we can all progress a little. My name is Larry, and I'm going to be haunted forever by the strange dead eyes of what may be the most dense, meme-packed video I've ever seen on the internet. And with me is Jim, Potato Salad Jesus.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Just call me Tater Salad, I guess.
Just call it Tater Salad. But are you at the point on your all-potato diet where you can start drinking delicious, delicious scotch?
Yeah, that's fine. I got to be careful because there's a lot of calories in alcohol, so yeah.
So we're gonna have a little treat for you because we're gonna open with some of the more juicy news that has been flexing on the internet drama scene. Jim Jeffries, formerly known for attempting to beclown Richard C. Meyer, a.k.a. your boy Zach, a.k.a. Diversity in Comics, current government name, Comics Matter. He's, a hit piece journalist, the guy who edits things together like they do on Comedy Central to make people who aren't really smart think that they're talking about the truth. But unfortunately, that's not the truth. It's, as a certain orange man would like to say, fake news. And somebody exposed him.
Oh.
My name is Avi Yemeni from TR. News Team, and today I experienced and exposed my own epic panodrama moment. A few months ago, I was contacted by Jim Jeffries, producer, and asked if I'd be willing to come on his show. Jim is one of the biggest names in the media down under, as well as in Hollywood. Spoiler, he's not really that big in Hollywood. He may be big in Australia. I don't know. All I know is it's a country that's so filled with spiders, it's kind of frightening to think what may be in their top end.
It's not so much the spiders, it's what the spiders can do.
Yes.
To where in the United States, we have like the piccolo spider or the black widow that'll give you nasty welts, maybe send you to the hospital, not to kill you, but unless you're old or a young child. But in Australia, they will jump out of anything and kill you instantly.
They actually have a spider in Australia that evolved to jump in the water and attack fish. You're not even safe from spiders in the water.
Nope.
If you're in Australia.
Nope.
So the opportunity sounded great, but I set out some basic conditions. To protect myself on Tommy's advice, I secretly filmed the entire interview. And boy, am I grateful. So we got the video, because the video's been circulating around YouTube. It's pretty great. So we're going to take a moment, watch that, and watch the downfall of a clown. An utter clown show of a man.
So a few months ago, Jim Jeffries' producer contacted me and asked me to come on as a guest to his show. Now, I agreed with two conditions. One, there'll be no neo-Nazi or Nazi sympathizers on the same segment.
Okay, is the volume working on your end?
To him, and I don't want to give him any legitimacy or anything like that. Common sense. The second one was that they don't cut my answers from one question and put it to another. Now, to my horror, but not my surprise, they did exactly both. Both those things. But they went even further. They connected me to the Christchurch killer, to the terrorist.
The New Zealand shooter left behind a detailed record of his anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim rhetoric. And unfortunately, these days, this kind of intolerance is being tolerated in more places than you might think.
So it's important to remember that this was filmed a few months ago and not in response to the Christchurch massacre.
So by the way, for some reason, it's not playing the volume for me. So Jim, if you see a good moment where you want to stop the tape and we can banter a little bit about that.
As they seem to be alluding here.
I was shocked to hear that the prick allegedly behind the Christchurch, New Zealand mass shootings is a white supremacist who grew up and was radicalised in Australia. So what is the situation down there? And what are the people who may have radicalised him saying?
White people like myself feel happy and safe around my culture, my people.
Sherman's a Nazi. You broke rule 1 in 20 seconds.
It only took him 20 seconds.
Anti-immigration
20 seconds?
It only took him 20 seconds for them to break the first rule. Because he had two rules. Don't put me in the same segment as a Nazi. And don't cut my answers and put them to another question. And it only took 20 seconds for them to break the first rule. How long do you think it'll take to break the second rule?
Let's find out.
Uniting some strange groups. It turns out that the one thing that can bring together the alt-right and a Jew is their shared hatred of Muslims. Meet Jewish activist Avi Yemeni, a good Australian name.
Luckily, I'm not an idiot, and I knew what their plan was all along. Well, they flew me to Singapore, put me in a hotel for a couple of days there. What was I to expect? It was a setup. So what I did was, I got there and I secretly put my phones down to record the entire segment. Now,
and here's the fun part, because I'd watched this before. Here's where they're about to get in a little tussle.
Clips that are important that he specifically didn't add to the piece. We filmed for about an hour, and there's about 3 or 4 minutes where he's included little snippets. So in the next few days, I'm going to release little bits that are important that I think everyone needs to see. But if you're on my Patreon, you can see the entire hour. I'll upload it within the next week. Islamic immigration, cut it.
Now, what makes Avi suddenly feel so comfortable saying this shit out loud?
I always stand by my words, and I say it publicly, loudly, and proudly. I won't say in private something different than what I'll say in public. And if I get it wrong, which I have at times, and I feel necessary to apologise, I've done it, and I will do it.
I might say
sure.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting because what he said. I mean, like, I mean, you and I will disagree on this. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's not exactly like he said, like, you know, gas all the Jews or anything. He just said, like, you know, hey, we need to stop all this immigration coming into the country, which is a reasonable position.
And it's a mainstream position in Australia.
It's also a mainstream opinion in the United States, but moving along.
Moving along.
A hippie saying this. What gives anyone the right to tell anyone where they can and can't live?
When you import this culture, what do you think is going to happen? Australia's going to end up the same shithole that they came from, that they were escaping. Watch how Jim Jeffries has edited this last clip to make me look like an ass. See what I really said.
What gives anyone the right to tell anyone where they can and can't live?
And that's the hidden camera joint.
I know borders, but wouldn't it just be nice if we got to a place in society where we had a utopia, where we all just lived as
on a level, I agree
You
with
may
you.
say I'm a dreamer.
I
I'm not
think
the only
most people, sensible people would agree with you in theory.
Yeah.
But in practice, it's not. It goes against human nature. It just doesn't work. You bloody scumbag, Jim. You see those rubbish edits through the entire segment, I don't even need to show you. You get my point. They put one answer to a different question. But today what I really want to show you is how Jim Jeffries speaks about Islam, about their prophet Muhammad, and about Muslims themselves.
Oh, no.
When he thinks the cameras aren't rolling, or when he knows he can cut it out.
So
Muhammad is considered the
Now, here's one of the things I find interesting. So you got a guy who is Jewish.
It's still playing.
Okay.
There he is. He looks like a
So you got a guy who's Jewish, right?
He's finally
And he's defending his position against somebody who's part of a dominant white majority in Australia. And the guy in the dominant white majority in Australia is lecturing the guy from the minority. And he's like an Arabic Jew. He's not like a European Jew by ancestry. So does that feel weird to you, Jim?
Yeah, a little. But some of the things that he says about Muhammad, I'm not even comfortable saying on YouTube.
Yeah. You know, we need to be a little bit careful. You know, we don't necessarily have a good platform.
That's what you do, Jimmy, when you think no one's going to see it. Now, I don't actually have a problem if you draw Muhammad, to be honest. That's me. But people like you call me an Islamophobe because that riles up, that upsets, that, in your words, triggers the Muslim into violence. Now, I wonder when this goes far and wide, and help it, share it around, let the world see. I want to see if the leftists condemn Jim. And even more so, what I'm interested to see is the people that he is hell-bent on protecting, the people that he is fighting so hard to let into Australia and the US. Let's see how they react when they see him mock their prophet. You know what the punishment for blasphemy is, Jim? I wish you luck, brother. But it gets worse. Watch what?
Now, the downside of watching this on YouTube
When the cameras aren't
is there's not really an actually good subtitle for the video.
Islam or dingo?
Islam and dingo sneaky?
Yeah,
Probably both.
probably both. Dangerous? Right.
Probably both.
Probably both.
The dingo ate the baby. It turned out it did eat the baby.
If it ain't a bloody Muslim baby, it would have vomited.
No, I don't actually agree with that.
Islam. I'm only joking.
Oof.
But that's not funny. You're talking about fucking killing kids.
So did we finally get our Rule 2 break, Jim?
Edit this bit out. I never look bad in these interviews.
Oh, yeah. Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right.
As soon as he brought him on.
Bad in his own segments.
Yep.
He edits it perfectly. And 9 out of 10 times he wins. He makes people like me look bad. Like Jordan Peterson look bad. But today, I got you, brother. How's it feel? So that's all I'm saying to you is that...
We don't disagree on all...
Nah, mate. We don't agree. I never, ever, ever even joke about killing Muslims. So I'm going to ask you all at home, make sure to share this far and wide. Share it with everyone. Because Jim works with the establishment, he has the mainstream media, he has the platform, he has the numbers. But I have you.
Oof. So let's kind of recap some of the things that Jim Jeffries said about Muslims. Jim Jeffries said that if a wolf had eaten a Muslim baby, he would throw it up, or some animal ate a Muslim baby, it would throw it up.
That's weird.
He drew a picture of Muhammad. He said that burqas are awful.
Hmm.
You know, but this other guy, he's definitely the Islamophobe, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we should
So-
just kill all the Muslims. But I'm not the Islamophobe.
No. So this is a thing, and it doesn't just happen on terrible Comedy Central shows. It happens on regular news shows. Several years ago, Insane Clown Posse busted, I think it was Bill O'Reilly for doing these sorts of shenanigans. You know, every so often, somebody has to bring in a camera to make somebody, you know, follow the rules. But even when they're following the rules, you're either getting put on blast or you're getting puffed up by these interview shows that are both comedy ones and news ones.
Yep.
And the comedy ones tend to be closer to actually being a news interview and providing actual, you know, information. And so we're going to move on from this serious story about a quote-unquote respected entertainment figure beclowning himself to a story of a respected entertainment figure beclowning herself. So we're going to open with this great Twitter meme that was originally a Reddit meme. Calling everybody gay, a 10-year-old with a headset, J.K. Rowling. In the classic bro embrace from Predator. So, for those of you who don't know, J.K. Rowling recently made a statement about Dumbledore and Grindelwald from the Fantastic Crimes of Grindelwald series, which is a series of movies and books that she has for sale. And she said, let me find the exact quote here, that their relationship was incredibly intense. It was passionate, and there was a love relationship. It has happened in any relationship, gay or straight, whatever label we want to put on it, one never really knows what the other person is feeling. You can't know, you can't believe it. So I'm less interested in the sexual side, though I believe there is a sexual dimension to this relationship. And I'm in the sense of emotions they feel for each other, which is ultimately the most fascinating thing about all the human relationships. So J.K. Rowling has come out to say that Dumbledore and Grindelwald have the hard gay for each other. And she didn't show it in the movie, where she actually...
As you would expect.
Especially considering she was the screenwriter of the movie.
Oh.
And at best, the movie showed that there were blood brothers who made a magical MacGuffin to not, you know, to make them not be evil to each other. It's a whole bunch of weird, recursive fan fiction stuff going on. But this goes right along with the fact that, oh yeah, I totally had an Israeli kid at Hogwarts. And, oh, that snake that's just a snake that makes the villain look cool. No, it used to be an Asian lady that had a disease curse on her that turned her into a permanent snake woman.
What?
Yeah. So the snake from the Harry Potter movies / books was a lady who was featured in the last movie.
I guess it's one thing to say, like, okay, let's kind of reimagine these characters by writing a prequel. I think it's another thing to go, hey, you know this book that you really like? I'm going to change everything about it because, and I'm going to do it on Twitter. So keep up.
And here's the fun part about that whole thing is she could have written an Asian character for this story. That would have been interesting, especially since a lot of it took place in France. It could have been like a Vietnamese character. But no, we're not doing that. And basically everybody on Twitter and YouTube has had enough of J.K. Rowling's ludicrous behavior. So what's your relationship with the whole Harry Potter mythos?
None. I haven't read any books, and I haven't watched any of the movies.
But, yeah. And when I was growing up, I was just too old for the first Harry Potter book, and it felt like they were talking down to kids. Saying, listen, this is a book that even kids can read and really enjoy. It's like, oh, so you're saying kids are stupid. Oh no.
No, don't do that.
And now, Harry Potter has become the defining political mythology of the hashtag current year generation. And speaking of the hashtag current year generation...
But I will say that I thought it was a lot of fun, and I may have participated a little bit in in some of the E-Bombs World raids where they were...
You were letting people know that...
Voldemort killed Snape.
Yeah, and what page it was on?
Yep.
before they read the book. So there's this lady
Allegedly.
named Charlotte. Yeah, there's this lady named Charlotte Alter, who's a writer for Time magazine, who wrote this big, puff piece about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And we're not going to get political on this one because we're going to talk about the cultural aspect of it. At AOC and I were born the same year. She was a Dunkaroos kid. I liked fruit roll-ups. People our age have never experienced American prosperity in our adult lives, which is why so many millennials are embracing democratic socialism. So let's read this. She's the national correspondent at Time magazine.
Am I missing a story somewhere?
I posted it in the doobly-doo.
Oh.
It's a Twitter doobly-doo.
Okay.
And she writes books about millennials and millennial politics. And so Andrew Surabian, who also has a blue check mark, who works for the GOP, said, and I quote about this woman, "Your mother was the executive producer of the Colbert Report. Your dad is a best-selling author and former editor of Newsweek, and you've never experienced American prosperity." She also went to a little school known as Harvard. You might have heard of it.
I think it rings a bell. I think it's kind of like a community college.
Yeah, it's kind of like a community college.
Like a really bad neighborhood or something like that.
Well, I mean, it's in Boston. That's pretty terrible.
Oh. Well,
and
drunk Irish people, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. So that's kind of an element to how unserious everyone is viewing things. Because, as was rightly pointed out by everyone on Twitter, every single person in the United States, even a homeless person, better off than 99% of the people in the rest of the world who is poor or some other thing. We live at the top of the top. And
unless you're downright homeless, and even then, unless you're like downright homeless, you live in a better situation than most people in the world. You definitely live better than most kings. I think where they said, like, if even if you're well below the poverty line and you have a place to live, you live in a better situation than most kings did.
Not to mention, we have this little magic device in our pocket that can get any recorded music in the history of ever on demand.
Yeah.
Or any piece of knowledge or entertainment in the history of ever on demand with a couple of extra steps.
Do you think castles had heating and air conditioning?
No. Also, many of them did not have indoor plumbing.
Or the ability to keep food safe without a whole bunch of salt. Or letting it ferment.
So, if we live in a world where people take Harry Potter as a political mythology, and they don't see how they're incredibly lucky to live in such a great time, it's hard taking these people seriously. Also, on a related note, for other completely well-adjusted individuals, there's a new internet community called Davers. So, you know what Raylo is, right?
Yes.
So, what Davers want, they don't just want Raylo to be real in movies. They want Raylo to be real in real life.
That's not how Mafia works, so.
Right. So, these wonderfully well-adjusted people have decided to dox Adam Driver and his wife so that they could break up their marriage.
No.
Yeah, this is a thing that's happening here. What is there we could do to stop people doxing like idiots?
Oh, stop going to see Star Wars movies?
Well, I mean, I don't think that'll stop doxing, because doxing will always be...
Well, that'll stop this particular instance, because if no one goes and sees it, they won't make any more.
Yeah, but, this movie's going to happen. People are going to see it. And there's going to be subsidiary products. So Kylo Ren and Raylo may live on in product media. So these people may bother Adam Driver and his wife forever. This is why people are trying to shut down free speech on the internet, you guys. Stuff like this right here. Stuff like this right there making people say, maybe free speech was a mistake. Maybe letting people say whatever they want, whenever they want, for all the dopamines maybe that was a mistake for technology.
Maybe. I don't think you're ever going to stop doxing. As long as there's someone on the internet who disagrees with another person, they're going to want them doxed.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Doxing is it's a way of life. So I think
you're never going to stop fake doxing either.
Exactly.
Help people, I've been doxed. Oh wait.
Or like,
oh, that never happened.
Oh. Or like talking about how somebody may be doing business out of a shipping crate for boats, even though it's actually not a shipping crate. It's an aluminum structure. You morons. So it's even worse when you do a fake dox. That means that makes you look extra stupid. But you want to cut that with something positive and good.
Okay.
Dora the Explorer live action poster shows the first look at Boots and Backpack. So Paramount Pictures is heading to the City of Gold with its new Dora the Explorer movie. And now it's released 2 new posters of what the feature film revealed a host of beloved favorites from the animated series, Dora and the Lost City of Gold, which will feature Isabella Moner as Dora, but it will also feature the lovable cast of characters that accompanies her on her adventures, and new posters give us the first look at the live-action Boots, Backpack, and Map. So will we find out in this movie why Map is always trying to kill Dora?
I don't know. I never watched Dora. Did you?
I have, periodically, because I've always had an interest in watching children's shows to see what they're trying to program kids with. Like, for example, in the case of Dora the Explorer, I watched it once on a Spanish channel when I realized, wait, the parts where Dora says things in Spanish, she's just saying them in Spanish, but when she should be saying things in English, she's also saying it in Spanish. And, yeah. So the second poster is the UK
Shouldn't it
poster.
be backwards? Shouldn't it be like every time she speaks Spanish, she should be speaking English?
Yeah, that would be what I would have done, but apparently Spanish language television channels aren't interested in kids learning English. Who'd have thunk it?
Well, it hurts their audience. Well, if they speak English, they'll watch the good channel.
Yeah. And the second poster is the UK poster. It gives a much clearer look at both Boots and Backpack as well as Map. Boots can be seen upwards the top, hanging on a tree branch, looking adorable, while Backpack is strapped to Dora's back and is the purple hue that we know from the show. In the poster, Dora is actually holding Map again. We're not sure how or if they'll animate it. So we look at this picture here, and this is a 17-year-old kid dressed up like an elementary school kid going to the Cities of Gold with her monkey on her backpack. Does that seem odd to you?
A little. What I want to know is, are they going to stop the movie every 5 minutes and go, "What should I do?"
I think they should. I think that would be entertaining. And we see the adorable.
Should I eat first?
And we see the adorable monkey here in the Cities of Gold, and Dora leading some people who are confused, like, "What? What am I here?" And let's see, Eva Longoria's in it. Yeah. So I'm guessing maybe Eva Longoria plays Dora's mom. So here's the little official description for the film. Having spent most of her life exploring the jungle with her parents, nothing could prepare Dora for her most dangerous adventure ever. High school. Always the explorer, Dora quickly finds herself leading Boots, her best friend a monkey, Diego, Jason Wahlberg, a mysterious jungle inhabitant, Eugenio Derbez, and a ragtag group of teens on a live-action adventure to save her parents, Eva Longoria and Michael Pena, as they solve the impossible mystery behind the Lost City of Gold. So there is some positive news about this movie, though. Danny Trejo is going to be the monkey.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Danny Trejo is?
Never mind. I know. What? Why? For the monkey?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what happened with Ice Cube and starting to do a whole bunch of family movies. When you got a whole bunch of a hard reputation as an actor, you got to do some family fare to kind of cut that.
But he did Spy Kids.
He did Spy Kids, but I'm guessing, being the fact that he's all tatted up and actually did time in prison, he needs to do more than Ice Cube to soften up his image. I don't know. Either that or maybe he's totally into the fact that, you know, Dora the Explorer is a Hispanic kids show and getting a movie.
Well,
So
maybe the monkey will give her some vegan tacos and some donuts.
And cocaine.
Oh, was that a thing?
It could be a thing. Fans got their first look at Dora the Explorer's live-action movie today, including their first glimpse at Boots, Dora's monkey sidekick. The lovable character is definitely going over well with fans, but if it gets even better when you realize that Boots will be played by Danny Trejo, who will bring his signature sound to Dora's adventure and make us even more hyped to see the actual trailer. And Trejo seems pretty pumped to play the character as well. Trejo took to Twitter after the first poster that was released for the film to announce he would be playing the character. Trejo wrote, "The rumors are true. I finally can tell you I'm a monkey. Boots." Don't miss Dora the Explorer trailer, Saturday, March 23rd, debuting live during the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. This pairing has all the potential in the world, and the good news is we don't have to wait long to hear what Boots sounds like.
And was that why I was getting an ad for one of those things for Nick Splat?
Yeah.
Or Nickelodeon Rewind?
Yeah, that's why. By the way, again, and I just need to reiterate this point, didn't we all learn in the 90s we don't like auto-playing video ads?
No.
Nobody watches them. If you can block them with blocking software, you block them.
By the way,
didn't we
block Origin on it? It still did it.
Yeah. They're aggressive. They're aggressive with their ads. So we both make fun of Jordan Peterson. Now, we're making fun of him because...
that depends on what your definition of fun is. If you're talking about having a good time and you're making a good time of him, well, that's one thing. But if you're talking about making fun of him and as in, like, I don't know, insulting his character, well, that's just another thing. And, you know, people will come up to me and say, you know, so-and-so is making fun of you. What do you think about that? And I'll ask them, like, well, what do you think I should feel about that? And their lobster brains can't handle it. And I just say, listen, Bucko, you got to clean your room.
So yes, like Jim doing that impressive Kermit J. Peterson video voice. But would you say Jordan Peterson is literally worse than Hitler?
No. He's annoying at best.
Well, we're gonna skip down to Tim Pool for a moment.
Or annoying at worse. Sorry.
Because that we're gonna get to the second story. Because that's more of a good way to sandwich this. So a New Zealand bookstore, in relation to the Christchurch shooting, has reached out to Mr. Jordan B. Peterson. Hello, thank you for contacting us. Unfortunately, 12 Rules for Life is currently unavailable, which is the decision that Whit Cools has been made in light of extremely disturbing material circulated prior, during, and after the Christchurch attacks. As a business which takes our responsibility to our communities very seriously, we believe that it would be wrong to support the author at this time. Apologies that we're not able to sell it to you, but we deeply appreciate your understanding. So this was an Erica who was buying it and circulated that to Jordan Peterson. So Tim Pool did a little search on their website, and Mein Kampf is there.
Oh. Well, wasn't that one of the things that was referenced? I don't know. I didn't read the manifesto, did you?
Well, no, it wasn't. But, of course, the shooter would probably have referenced Mein Kampf, which, as we all know, is German for Mein Wall.
Mein Wall. Because I don't know if you noticed, it's a little known fact that in 1933 the Reichstag fire gave Hitler the legal precedence to declare a state of emergency, granting him the power to begin his lifelong dream of building the Berlin Wall. And 86 years later, that wall still stands as a symbol of oppression and racism. Let's not repeat his mistakes. He didn't build it himself, obviously. He wasn't a mason, but his Mein Kampf, Mein Wall, laid out the plan for it. Mein Kampf means Mein Wall. Mein is German for my. This is a fact. Read a book. Also, our culture is downstream from the Berlin Wall.
Yeah. So that's a little deep cut of Jim lore.
That's the Michael Malice.
Yeah. So an actor from a movie we're going to be talking about a little bit has outraged fellow actors after revealing his love for Jordan B. Peterson.
Oh, well, so he's a Nazi then.
Apparently so now. Charlie Hunnam, who's in Sons of Anarchy, triggered an outcry from outraged fans after revealing in a recent interview that he is a big fan of controversial public intellectual Jordan Peterson, who had an offer to be a guest lecturer at Cambridge University in the UK, but it was removed because they felt it would be a threat to the safe spaces of the students there. So Charlie, speaking to Men's Health about his latest role in Triple Frontier, which we're going to be talking about a little later, described training with Navy SEALs in preparation for his role as a former Special Forces soldier. In doing so, Hunnam found parallels between the stoic soberness of Special Forces soldiers and Peterson. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, as are a lot of people right now. He's become quite an internet phenomenon and card-carrying member of the intellectual dark web. Don't ever use that word. That makes you sound like you're an idiot. The intellectual dark web implies a lot of things about intellectuals and about the dark web that are both wrong.
Mm-hmm. As much as I like Joe Rogan, I would not consider him an intellectual.
And I would not consider him part of the dark web. Alex Jones, maybe. Like, I can imagine there's like a secret brain implant in Alex Jones's head broadcasting directly onto the dark web.
Well, I mean, he's not thinking of this stuff by himself. I mean, he is a bit retarded.
He is a bit retarded, as he himself said. So anyway, I love the message that he promotes, which is take your life seriously. Carry as much responsibility as possible, Hunnam said. I think in his words, he says, pick up the heaviest thing that you can and carry it. Hunnam, who is a fan of retired Navy SEAL and expert on leadership, Jocko Willink, said that Peterson's maxim was very much the philosophy and mentality of Special Forces warriors. According to Hunnam, in our current culture, everyone's grown soft and entitled. It's like, no, guys, you're not entitled to everything, he said, and that just speaks to the importance of getting out there and working for yourself. Unsurprisingly, Hunnam found a stark contrast between the Hollywood film industry types and hardened soldiers. I found those attitudes of the Special Forces guys to be really refreshing, he said. Such naked admiration for Jordan Peterson and purportedly toxic masculinity he represents did not go over well with many liberal spectators. Blue checkmark writer Alicia Lutz, who I've never heard of, was particularly perturbed, said this is a bad look, Charlie Hunnam, for saying positive things about Jordan B. Peterson, who, as we learned from our friends in New Zealand, is literally worse than Hitler. Literally worse than Hitler. We've learned that.
He wanted to build 2 Berlin Walls.
Exactly. So what do you think about people losing their minds about Jordan B. Peterson?
This is just common now. I mean, this was a thing that people have been saying for quite some time about him. And I was just like, well, really? Really? Is it a Nazi?
And while
he really is kind of like a kind of milquetoast conservative or Canadian flavor of conservative.
It's more complicated. He's a blue grit, which is the member of the left-wing party that's more right-wing on reasonable issues. But Canada's politics is weird.
Yeah.
But, like, I will make fun of Jordan B. Peterson, but he is a very good speaker. He is very good at taking complex issues in psychotherapy and other social sciences and condensing them in a way that people start to understand them. And he's preaching out to people who need guidance and direction in their life, and that's positive. And that's good.
Yep.
But
now, I wouldn't say that my room is completely clean, but my apartment is definitely 60% cleaner than what it normally is.
So. My room is actually cleaner right now. I don't clean my room, even though I'm somewhat kind of a fan of Jordan Peterson.
Oh.
But I do follow other rules like petting cats and letting kids skateboard, because those are also important. So our good friends over at Google have decided that they want to be evil again. So Google has decided that they're going to start a Netflix for video games for computer users. I don't know if anybody's told Google that Steam exists. Do you think somebody's told them that? Or maybe it's because they don't have phones at Google.
I'm sorry.
What
was that?
I said Google's trying to make a Netflix for video games, and I said that Steam already exists, and then I made the joke like, well, maybe nobody over at Google has phones.
Okay,
So they're starting a service called Stadia,
mm-hmm.
and they got an article from CNET, and I posted the direct link to CNET in the doobly-doo.
Okay.
Google vows to fight abuse that could pop up in Stadia communities. We're going to work as hard as we can, Google VP Philip Harrison says in a wide-ranging interview, revealing that Google, shocking no one, is going to be engaging in censorship.
Yeah.
Google wants to prevent...
By the way, Mr. Medicare's good friend and Mr. Antibully had kind of called this out already.
Yeah.
He's a very
Google,
good friend.
Yeah. Google wants to prevent its new Stadia from filling up with racist bigots and trolls who congregate online and who also are being told to clean their room. Because, again, cleaning your room is the first step to becoming a literal Nazi.
Well,
Earlier
I think that was actually in Mine Wall. I think that was actually a whole chapter is you have to clean your room. Then once you clean your room, then you can work on building a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, maybe cleaning the room was code for something else. Something else that involved showers. I don't know. So earlier
Those
this
are just
week,
delousing rooms, man.
earlier this week, the search giant unveiled its cloud-based video game service, which lets people play games streamed over the web. Another service does that over the cloud. It's called Steam.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I know that.
Supports that.
I know that Steam has a Steam box where you can basically turn your computer into a cloud gaming thing, but I don't think that they support their own cloud.
Because I've played Steam games directly that are in Steam and not on my computer.
Oh, okay.
It also lets players connect and share on YouTube, which Google also owns. Huh. It's almost like Google wants to take complete ownership of video game streaming. Creating
Stadia. I ended up watching this press conference and getting familiar with it. So the idea is basically kind of create like a streaming video game service where it's all streaming. You can't download any of the stuff, and you can play from anything that supports like a Chrome browser, so a Chromebook, an Android phone, your web browser, even a Chromecast TV. And they sell like these controllers that are Wi-Fi enabled, and they connect directly into your Wi-Fi, and it transfers all of your data straight over into the cloud. So you're playing directly from the internet. So it's not like a third party bouncing around. It kind of helps reduce latency. I don't know how well it'll work, but given how Steam boxes work, they work fairly well. So I mean, I wouldn't put it past Google to make something that really works. The issue that I have is, and then on top of that, if you can also live stream games a lot easier because you're not having to render video to the internet on top of playing a game. You're basically letting Google handle most of that stuff and then just rendering
and take most of the money.
Yeah, and advertising revenue. But
yeah,
it's an interesting concept, but yeah, I don't like the idea. Of having a controller that's connected to the Wi-Fi, that's connected to Google, that also has a built-in microphone.
That's weird.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Google would never make devices like that would connect into any of your other Wi-Fi enabled devices. That would never happen. That would never be something that Google would do. Google wants to not be evil. Right. That's their motto. Which, in hindsight, is one of the most evil things if you think about it. Because would a person who really doesn't want to be evil say don't be evil? Because they would just not assume that you need to tell people you're not evil. That's like saying, I have a whole bunch of black friends. That's a sign that you don't really have black friends and you're probably racist.
I'm not racist, but I would never date an Asian guy.
Is it because he's Asian or a guy?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not racist then.
No.
It's something else.
It's sexist. I was told that I had a vagina fetish, and that's the reason why I wouldn't date a trans woman. I was like, we're done talking now.
So
What do you say to that?
That's why. Well, thank you so much for occupying moments of my time. You have a great rest of your life. Goodbye. So, creating the community could also open the door to abusive content, a problem that already plagues Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other social media platforms. Tech platforms are under intense scrutiny for failing to police what happens in their service. Google wants to make sure that problems don't reappear on Stadia. In a 30-minute interview, Phil Harrison, who runs Stadia, said the game project was committed to keeping abusive activity off the service, but he offered a few specifics and acknowledged it would be hard to combat. I wish we could make some grand proclamation that it's going away, Harrison said. on the sidelines of the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, but I don't think it's true. Wading deeper into the video games means facing challenges that have already beset the gaming community. Discord, a chat app for gamers, has been criticized being what some say is a safe place for white supremacists and anti-Semites, and Gamergate, an online movement that gained steam in 2014, pushed some of the sexist and racist tropes of prevalent in gaming culture, which is weird because the people who were calling out those tropes called it out before Gamergate started. Yeah. That's weird. It's almost like this article and the person working for Google don't know what they're talking about. And also, let's not forget Discord also has been a safe place for furries and pedophiles.
Furry pedophiles, specifically.
But Discord has been making an effort to crack down on that. Yeah. Separately, Google and YouTube has had trouble containing abuse on its site after a shooter opened fire at 2 mosques in New Zealand last week. Video footage of the terrorist...
Is that Gamers Rising Up?
Well, I mean, he did say subscribe to PewDiePie. Video footage of the terrorist attack spread relentlessly on the video site, which welcomes more than 1 billion visitors each month. In the hours after the shooting, a team at Google worked throughout the night to take down tens of thousands of videos. The site also faced controversy for scandals involving pedophilia, extremism, and disinformation. It's kind of interesting how they sandwich that all together there in that paragraph. It's almost like, well, Google's disreputable, but we want to talk about how evil gamers, especially ones affiliated with PewDiePie, are bad on YouTube. During the interview, Harrison also discussed game design and internet speeds. He declined to talk about pricing and business models, saying the company will share more details this summer. So let's talk about this today. So what are you trying to prevent? Abuse and whatever toxic behavior on Stadia? Harrison, we're going to work as hard as we can on that. I wish we could make some grand proclamation that's going to go away. I don't think that's true. I think we can marginalize it to a large, and there are certain gamers who enjoy that type of communication. But that's not what we want to associate with as a platform, and we will do what we can to find it and insulate it from the rest of what our platform is. So it's kind of like that guy who felt isolated and alone about his thoughts about what was going on in his country of New Zealand and Australia, and he was being marginalized. And so he decided to respond to that by shooting up a bunch of people. I'm not sure marginalizing voices is the go-to game. I mean, honestly, I make fun of the Zuckbucks idea, but if there were bitcoins to not be a jerk on the internet, I think that would work far better than banning people for being jerks on the internet. Don't you, Jim?
Yeah. I'm down to get some Zuckbucks for being good.
For being good boy. Good boy bucks.
I'd stop trolling for a bit. Occasionally.
I mean, you know, let's not be crazy about that.
Yeah. Let's not get too carried away.
And that's really what I'm talking about, again, because reality is the reason our good friends at Google are wanting to tightly censor this gaming platform is because streaming makes a lot of money on YouTube and its principal rival, Twitch. So, of course, YouTube is going to want to completely control the message. So the only way they do that is by tightening down and banning people.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder, if you get banned from streaming, do you also lose access to whatever games you bought? Or is it going to be a subscription service? I don't think they said all that stuff.
They don't have the business model worked out yet.
Okay.
And since we did talk about that, you know, there's a video games journalist who made a comment about the New Zealand tragedy. Are violent video games the direct cause of real-world violence? No. Are violent video games being used as a recruiting ground by neo-Nazis? Yes. Maybe it's time for large game conferences to talk about how you prevent that instead of stopping people drawing dicks or whatever. So this John Kane seems like a reasonable person, right?
No.
Also, John Kane on his Facebook. CW sexual assault. An update to last night's post. What does CW mean? I don't know what CW means in this case, but that's less important to the story. Multiple people have reached out to tell me that they felt my previous statement was diminishing or evasive. That was not my intention. You should believe the other person's version of events, and you should respect their privacy in the matter. I was staying with a long-term partner with whom I had specific discussions on what levels of physical contact were and weren't okay. I knew that partner had been prescribed a medication that affected their ability to consent. I didn't know that they had taken the medication that day, but I had a responsibility to add on. They had taken it, and I failed that responsibility. I believed in that moment that there was enthusiastic verbal consent to things we had previously agreed to. I now know that consent was not valid. I realized the horrible error I made before things progressed past kissing and fondling and stopped immediately. So, it was only a partial rape. It wasn't a completed rape. Under the ideology of these wonderful people who are our betters and are trying to help us. I've lived with that moment burned in my mind for the last 2.5 years. I don't go a day without thinking about that one question. One or small bit of mindfulness in that moment could have avoided causing someone I cared about such pain. Since then, because they asked me to, I have made a concerted effort to avoid them at public events. I have had conversations with many people in the games community about what happened. I'm continuing to work hard at becoming a more mindful person. As in my previous statements to the person involved, if you ever read this, I am sorry. That night and our breakup were both things I should have handled in a more emotionally open and mature way than I did. You're deserving better, blah, blah, blah. And many of you know there's been a Facebook post last year or recent.
By the way, did we learn anything about this whole, like, you should believe the other person's version of events and you should respect their privacy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you remember what happened not too long ago?
Yeah.
There was like 3 instances of it just recently. The Covington kids, Kavanaugh, and then Jesse Smollett. But you should acknowledge that when people make a claim and go, okay, and be sympathetic to it, but then, you know, it's trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
That's a much better approach than just believing all whammons or believing all people that fall into the intersectionality bubble. It's like, okay, well, I trust that you wouldn't lie to me, but let's investigate and see if this is what really happened. Because who knows? They may really legitimately believe that something actually did happen to him like that. I know that there was I don't want to mention their names because they're not very savory. But there was a live streamer who would bring on a guest occasionally, and for some reason, the guy who hosted the show, his wife would often confuse that guest with someone who attacked her or raped her, or I don't know exactly what happened. And it's pretty clear that they've never probably even been in the same geographical area at the same time. So, yeah.
So you remember Frank Oz, the man behind Yoda and many of the wonderful Muppets characters. Mm-hmm. Well, he got called out on some things, and as it ends up happening when you get called... Well, no, he has made oopsies in the past, but now he's gone forward to bend the knee and give a perspective for the other side involving Star Wars, which will be starting to consume things here shortly. Rumors are, and there have been rumors about the trailers for a while, that they're going to be coming out really, really soon. Frank Oz says Star Wars filmmakers aren't here to fulfill fan expectations.
What?
So let's stop.
Wait, say that one more time.
Frank Oz says Star Wars filmmakers aren't here to fulfill fan expectations.
Oh.
So let's pause and just review this statement here for a moment, because there's a lot that's wrong here in this statement. So, like, are we talking expectations of, like, Reylo happening and, like, they're having, a hard R, sex scene in the movie? No, obviously we're not there to fulfill that kind of expectations. But how about expecting a good movie?
No,
that should be a fan expectation there to fulfill. I mean,
or even a coherent movie.
Yes, but we've seen recently that people buy tickets to movies that are neither good nor coherent. So maybe studios are saying, well, it doesn't benefit us to actually do a good product because people will just keep eating garbage. But let's get into Frank Oz's words here. Frank Oz, the puppeteer and voice of Yoda in the Star Wars franchise, is looking to stir up the fans with a recent statement he made regarding the complaints fans have had against Rian Johnson's Star Wars Last Jedi. And you know what? I have to say, as an internet troll, if I were a movie maker, I would love to be in the position Rian Johnson's in, because people are always going to be talking shit about this movie. It's not like how people talk about Man of Steel was kind of disappointing, and holy Jesus, Batman versus Superman is a giant train wreck and a disaster. This movie is a movie that people are still mad at over a year later. Coming close to 2 years later.
Yeah. By the
So,
way,
I mean,
I also need to say, because I need to own this, and I'm what are those Catholic people who always like flog themselves? I kind of feel like that I need to do that every time this topic comes up. Is that initially I thought I liked the movie, and then once I kept thinking about it, I was like, oh no.
You thought you liked the movie, but
no.
your brain didn't.
Yeah, but my brain didn't. The more I thought about it, it just was like, oh, this is all bad. And it really didn't really completely cement in when it was available in the public library, and I tried watching it again, and I got 10 minutes in, and I was like, yeah, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? So I need to own it.
So,
I got
so Frank
Phantom
Oz,
Menace for sure.
So Frank Oz says, I love the movie. All the people who didn't like this Jedi thing is just horse crap. It's all about expectations. The movie didn't fulfill their expectations, but as filmmakers, we're not here to fulfill people's expectations. And he said, yeah, there's a whole backlash. I couldn't understand the whole backlash. I didn't get it. I thought it was a great piece of work. I never understood the backlash. I'm somebody that works with the script. And if the script is there, I believe the script is organic and right for the moment and the character. And that's kind of all I think about. I don't think about the extra powers or anything. I just go with it. I don't consider that really. You don't consider the fact that you have a character who had understandable powers, which means stakes were understandable, which means in turn motivations and how he would act towards people are understandable, and then he lightning's a tree. Lightning's a tree to trick somebody into thinking he's burning down sacred texts, which aren't burned down at all. And he's tricking that person to make a move forward, but wouldn't it have been more important for him to burn the tree down and then Yoda to, trick him that way, make him feel guilt about that to drive him there? I mean, I'm just saying, if we understand the powers, then we understand the motivations, we understand what the characters can do, and then the story makes sense. If you just throw powers in like a chum bucket of fish in the water, it's a giant mess. So, Frank, you've made lots of wonderful characters and performances, but I don't care for...
Sit down.
Yeah, I don't care for that, sir. I don't care for that at all. And, do you remember a little game called Escape from Monkey Island?
No.
Do you remember Maniac Mansion?
No.
Do you know both of those games were Lucasfilm products?
Well, obviously no, since I never heard of them. Okay.
Well, they're actually well thought of series of games. Also, other beloved games such as Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, and Full Throttle. They're all part of the giant Lucasfilm library that
what about the
Disney owns. Well, that's also part of the thing, but we're going to go with them. But John Blessing suggests Lucasfilm's game revival by Disney, which is very interesting considering Disney's going to have to cut a whole bunch of jobs with the merger for Fox to take care of the extra costs they accrued in buying Fox after Comcast ran up the money. So if they're spending a lot more money on their streaming service and they're starting up a games division after recently saying they don't do games well, that means that they're going to have to fire a whole bunch of people at Disney. Maybe even fire people at Marvel Comics and run Marvel Comics like they run the Disney Comics division. So is Disney reviving the Lucasfilm's game division? A Lucasfilm's rep followed up with us today and said that Lucasfilm's licensed game business and the relationship with EA remains strong, and the team will focus on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for the time being, which launches this fall for consoles and PC. Although Disney's acquisition of the Star Wars franchise from George Lucas was huge back in 2013, it wasn't without setbacks. A big one was the closure of LucasArts, a label known for producing top-tier Star Wars games, along with inspired original titles. However, it looks like Disney is primed to bring that era back in style. So, what's very interesting about the Lucasfilm statement is they're front-selling the EA game that's coming out there without, confirming or denying the whole, hey, they're building up a games division so they can eventually fire EA talk. It's interesting. A little bit of public relations mumbo-jumbo. A report from PCN Games suggests that the company will revisit some of the old-school gaming goodness with the new division, Lucasfilm Games. This comes from a job listing on the Disney career site. This company is looking to fill a number of positions, from producers to artists and other creative roles based on job listings. Lucasfilm Games will focus on a number of interactive projects. These include games in the Star Wars brand, along with Lucasfilm IP. There's no consoles are mentioned by names. The games will be available for all digital platforms. This is likely to include consoles and PCs and perhaps even mobile games. One of these listings point out that the team seeks experience and knowledge of... I mean, people have phones, Jim.
Oh.
I mean, we don't have phones, but other people have phones.
Okay. So
Experience and knowledge of best practices in the game industry. It's not like Disney is ready to re-enter the games market. With this new venture, it'll be the first time it's done so directly since the failure of Disney Infinity toy lineup, which closed up shop back in 2016. The company has not officially announced any Lucasfilm Games details at the moment. However, it could do so at Star Wars Celebration, E3, or Disney's own D23 Expo. So, what do you think about this? You think Disney
are we getting another TIE Fighter?
Well, we can't do that right now because EA has the license. But what do you think? Do you think Disney is going to kick EA to the curb?
I hope so. EA is terrible.
EA is terrible. And Escape from Monkey Island is an interesting game series. If you have an opportunity to get a copy of it or any of the games in the series from the public library, I'd recommend you do so. You will have a good time. But it's an old game from the 80s and 90s. So you have to accept those aspects a little bit.
It's kind of like going back and playing Quake again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not going to have...
Quake was a great game.
Yes. So we've been talking about...
Heard of this Bitcoin thing?
Exactly. So we've talked a lot about censorship that's been going on. We've touched a little bit around the whole shooting incident in New Zealand, and we got another story to talk about again because the good folks in Canada are considering forcing social media companies to remove extremist content. Canada's considering whether to force social media companies to remove hateful and extremist content online. This comes after a spate of terrorist attacks in New Zealand, Quebec City. By the way, Quebec City happened recently as well, for those of you who don't know. Kind of weird, though, how a man of Middle Eastern descent stabbed a Catholic priest, and that's not being covered widely in the news. Pittsburgh and other places where right-wing extremists have used the internet to spread hate speech and incitements or to commit similar violence targeting minorities who they wrongly assert are part of a broader effort to replace and subjugate white people. That's kind of weird how, again, they confuse that. That's very weird. We will look very carefully, said Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale. When asked specifically if the government is considering legislation to force social media companies to remove hateful and extremist content, this has been a subject of discussion among ministers at the Five Eyes meeting and at the G7 meetings, where ample discussion has been held on how we're going to encourage the social media platforms to quickly and efficiently to deal with toxic communication like this and incite violence and hatred and obviously do great damage to social cohesion. So, you know what the Five Eyes conference is?
The G5 conference?
No, the Five Eyes.
Oh, no.
Give me a second. Let me pull that up. And I'm going to pull up a Wikipedia page for you so we can kind of explore this together. Five Eyes, FVEY, refers to an alliance between Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These countries are bound by the multilateral UK-USA agreement to joint cooperation in signals intelligence, military intelligence, and human intelligence. In recent years, the documents of FVEY have shown that they are intentionally spying on one another's citizens and sharing the collected information with each other in order to circumvent domestic regulations on spying.
Excuse me. By the way, do you want to reconnect real quick?
Reconnect?
Yeah, we're getting some weird kind of audio glitches stuff going on.
Okay. You need me to reconnect now?
Yeah. All right. Let's try that again.
How about now?
Yeah. A little bit better.
Much better? Okay.
That's better.
So we talked when some of the things for where we talked about some of the weird things that were happening in the finance industry, where the government was unofficially targeting businesses and banks, even after the government said, no, that's not an official policy. And that's very interconnected with censorship on social media and big tech platforms. Well, now we look at this as something that's being done as part of a global counterterrorism strategy where these things are being spied on now. And YouTube canceling conspiracy theory videos under this framework based on what this Australian safety minister is telling, not Australian, Canadian safety minister, Australia is a more respectable country, is saying, so there could be global pressure coming on YouTube and Google and all these other things that countries are going to regulate on them. So they're having to try to be ahead of the panic. And Goodale said that the details of how such a plan could work still need to be worked out, and he hopes companies will take the initiative to act on their own. But what they're doing now is not enough. He said, we've got to find a way to identify those rapidly, even before they have a chance to be posted in the public domain, and bring them down. So in other words, we need to find out people who are going to commit an act of terrorism before they commit it, and that they're going to broadcast it on the internet and target them before they do the act of terrorism. That doesn't seem suspicious at all.
Sounds like a really bad movie plot.
Was it a movie that would star Tom Cruise and Colin Farrell?
Okay, I think.
But you know what? We should get Steven Spielberg to direct it to try to, fix it in post.
I don't know. All those Scientologist people, they all look the same to me.
And Australian internet service providers have been shutting down sites that could, in theory, host the videos, even though they don't. And Germany, they're citing this article, how Germany blocks things at the IP level from social media sites. So we're not going to be able to talk about things on the internet anymore because the government's going to control what we think in a global community where the right to free speech is a fundamental right of pretty much every country and the United Nations. So we got something here that's on a video with on Twitter, but I'm actually not going to skip this. Basically, Zachary Levi, the star of Shazam, aka the good Captain Marvel, says we should stop giving a voice to individuals expressing a negative misogynist view about movies like Captain Marvel online. So what we're seeing here is a dichotomy of people in power who tend to be of a exclusive background, talking down to people who are not in power and telling them that how they need to enjoy products and to consume them and then get excited to consume them again. I mean, Mike and Jay, they may be kind of prophetic sometimes. Maybe Rich Evans is telling them what to say. I don't know.
I mean, how really could you have predicted the World Trade Center being in what was that movie? I don't even remember the name.
Well, I mean, The Simpsons did do it first.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that we have to give credit to The Simpsons on that one. And so Kevin Feige has weighed in on the social justice warrior thesis about popular internet talking points about things. Is Kevin Feige invokes Stan Lee, says Marvel movies created to push a worldview that is the right way to be. Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige invokes Stan Lee in his iconic Stan's soapboxes while discussing Marvel Studios' approach to diversity. Stan's soapboxes were found in many of old Marvel comics. Marvel Comics is actually reprinting a number of them in their current comics. Speaking with the Los Angeles Times, Feige invokes Stan Lee were just stewards, the current stewards of these characters that he and his co-creator brought together, and all of them were created in the spirit of those soapboxes. Feige added, this was very much Stan's worldview and what these movies represent. He then discussed that this worldview is the right way to be because, that is, how do I put this? It's the right way to be. It's the way the world should be. And one of the great things about movies is you get to showcase the world that you want to reflect and the way you want the world to be. And that's what he did with these characters. And you know what's interesting about that? Something that was pointed out to me. Now, you watched Avengers, right?
Yeah.
The first one. Because it's one of the best movies ever made. And in that movie, the Avengers focused a lot of time in the plot on saving people, right? You watch Iron Man, also one of the best movies ever made. And I'm being slightly hyperbolic there.
Yeah,
but Iron Man, but Iron Man focused a lot on saving people. Avengers 2, a major plot point was a whole bunch of things happened because the Avengers focused on saving people. So, did the Avengers focus on saving people in Infinity War?
Yes.
Did they focus on it in the same way that they did? Like,
No.
was that the major focus of the plot? No. Did Black Panther focus on saving people?
Yes. Ish. Asterisk.
Yes, asterisks, exactly. If we count shape-changing lizard people, Captain Marvel may have counted as saving people, kinda, sorta. Let's go with Doctor Strange. Did Doctor Strange focus on saving people?
Yes. Ish.
Okay. Yes, ish, again. It was about everybody in a superhero battle, but it's the big monster. So yes, people were being saved.
They were going to basically eat up the entire world.
Right, but people were going to be saved, but those people were not in the foreground of the picture.
Yeah.
They were implied in the background. So isn't it interesting that as they're focusing on bringing diverse characters into the foreground of the movie as the way the world needs to be, we're not seeing the heroes being heroic. And we're not seeing the people that they save appreciating them heroically as well. So what do you think about that?
So you're trying to draw a line of distinction between what goes on in Marvel movies versus what Superman does, or what the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man does.
Well, no. What I'm drawing the distinction of is that if we're trying to make these movies like the right way to be that Stan would have advocated for, we're not seeing heroes saving people. We're not seeing people in danger because of the villains. It's implied, but we're focusing on the people with the big, bad, cool powers blowing things up and having problems. We're not focusing on people. We're losing the humanity in the Marvel movies. And while we're losing the humanity in the Marvel movies, we're focusing on having more black, brown, gay, and Chinese characters. Something for you to put in your head box and think about when we go into the Marvel movies coming up. I know, movies are kind of getting serious and deep and philosophical. Let's not get deep and philosophical, and let's talk about something fun.
I think there's room for philosophical stuff in film. That's fine. Or political kind of talking in film. Even if I disagree with it, there's a lot of great films that have political messages. But when I go to watch a Marvel movie, the only thing I really want to see is bad guy getting punched.
Exactly.
Even if bad guy barely got punched.
Now, I was using that though as a segue to talk about Marvel Comics writer Gail Simone, who is a controversial figure on Twitter, and she has decided to attack Chick-fil-A with its delicious, delicious chicken.
Yes. God damn.
Also,
I'm on a diet. Fuck you.
Also, Gail Simone is trying to promote a comic book company that she's the creative architect for, but instead of focusing on that on Twitter, we're focusing on calls for boycott of Chick-fil-A. A website called Eater says, yes, Chick-fil-A's foundation still donates to anti-LGBTQ causes. And Gail Simone says, we don't need to support companies that have this kind of thing in their DNA, and she's calling for a boycott. But you remember what happened last time they tried to boycott Chick-fil-A?
There was a boycott.
Yeah. And
stock shot through the fucking roof.
Yeah. And Chick-fil-A became the most popular chicken joint in the United States.
And then everybody forgot, and even Jack bought a whole bunch of Chick-fil-A for everybody at his office.
Because it's delicious.
Yes, it is delicious. And by the way, they put a Chick-fil-A not too far from me, and I gained like 30 pounds. So,
so the Salvation Army is one of these anti-LGBT organizations that are being cited, which has a giant section of their webpage focusing on how they support the LGBT community. And now they are compliant with federal laws on gay, lesbian, transgender, and all that employment. Also, the Paul Anderson Youth Group was founded by weightlifter Paul Anderson. The organization works to help young men with substance abuse problems and provides them with, again, a religious way through that. And, of course, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, blah, 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 blah. So, number one, Chick-fil-A stock. If you haven't bought some, it might be a good time to buy some if this boycott takes off. Also, we have some wonderful pictures in this article about how when the gay nightclub got shot up in Orlando, you know who was there to help first responders and people volunteering to help the community? Chick-fil-A with food.
Oh, no. But I thought they hated the gays.
No. That's just because we live in a society, even though I'm saying that for ironic humor. We live in a world where you need to be put into a box that can be used to sell you commercial products.
Was
either
Mike Pence sneaking 9-volt batteries in those sandwiches?
He was not.
Hoping to shock them? No?
No, they were just delicious sandwiches.
It's just... Oh, I want Chick-fil-A sauce.
You know what I really love at Chick-fil-A? The waffle fries.
Yes.
And getting the chicken gravy with the waffle fries.
You can get chicken gravy?
Oh, yeah. Down south, they have chicken gravy at Chick-fil-A.
Oh, my God. I need to check into this.
So dribble that chicken gravy on top of those waffle fries, which are made out of potatoes that are on your diet. The stuff in the chicken gravy is not on your diet right now.
Well, neither is the salt or the oil that they fry them in.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
And we have another little bit of a weird dip into comic books is they're doing a reimagining of Harley Quinn over in DC Comics. So, there's been a whole lot of controversy in the creative community online about canon. We talked about that all the way back with Chuck Wendig. So they're now deciding exactly. They're now deciding that what they're going to do is they're going to do these little independent side projects aimed at younger and younger audiences, and make those be those people's entry point into the product, and then slowly push out the other audiences. They were trying to bootstrap people into comics with this new agenda. That didn't work, so they're now redoubling to a new tactic. And so Mariko Tamaki's fresh and quirky take on Harley Quinn. In Harley Quinn Breaking Glass, Toronto-born, California-based Mariko Tamaki joins British illustrator Steve Pugh in reimagining the anti-hero's teenage years. So let's hit a pause button here. So Harley Quinn became an anti-hero after she was corrupted by the Joker. So what you're saying is we're going to show a book about how she becomes abused enough that she can later become codependent on the Joker? Is that the wonderful thing we're going to do to sell this character to a new generation? And Harleen Quinzel heads to Gotham and ends up finding a family within a community of drag queens.
What?
Also, yep. While also coming under the influence of student activist Ivy, as in Poison Ivy, because again, the lesbian Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn relationship, we need to sell that, and a shadowy figure who calls himself the Joker.
She's wearing a pussy hat.
She is, because she's woke. This is the latest superhero comic for Tamaki.
She's an anti-hero, so she's not a good person.
Well, she is now in the comics. Because she doesn't need no man anymore, so she's become a good person. This is the latest superhero comic for Tamaki, who has recently been writing stories for DC, Supergirl, being Super, and Marvel, She-Hulk. Also in her She-Hulk run, she wrote an entire comic about how She-Hulk had a feud with a YouTube food critic. That was a thing that was in a comic book. That actually happened.
And, so Joyce World Tour is going to be in a comic book?
Yes.
Okay.
As well as releasing her own personal, often award-winning. That's a weird phrase there. Often award-winning. If you win an award, you're award-winning, right?
Yeah.
Young adult graphic novels, including Skims, This One Summer, and upcoming Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Q&Q spoke with Tamaki about comics, drag queens, and what makes the character of Harley Quinn so appealing.
By the way, it's also worth noting that Tom Green is an award-winning filmmaker.
He is.
It was
And
a Razzie.
And he introduced a special Disney princess to the world.
Yes, and we'll get to that.
We will get to that.
Yeah.
So you're enjoying success with literary young adult graphic novels and at the same time with writing Marvel and DC superhero comics. How do the genres coexist for you? In what way do they offer you something different creatively? Isn't this the sort of thing I was talking about earlier about how, news articles are about puff pieces, not about telling anybody anything interesting or different about the product? It's like, wow, you're so great and special and wonderful because we're probably getting paid on the back end by your publisher. In many ways, it's the same. For me, both are about story and character. When I think about writing comics for myself and for DC characters, I start from the same place, which is sort of amorphous. Who is this and why is this story about? And what is this story about, excuse me? They're kind of a puzzle solving that comes from writing mainstream characters like Harley Quinn. So because you're working with a character that already exists, that has a history, and in some ways, you're responding to that. I'm such a pop culture nerd, I really love the challenge. What is your history with superhero comics? Are there certain characters you've been drawn to? I've been writing superhero characters for a while now. I started off with Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and Casey and April from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've worked on X-23, and She-Hulk for Marvel, and Supergirl, and now Harley Quinn for DC. I'm definitely drawn to complex, hitting superhero stories that are very human. I always want to know what happens after someone saves the day. Like, do they go home and watch reality TV? What do they eat? So, haven't you always wondered, does Batman, after he has an exciting time of Batmaning and also running a major company, does Batman go and watch Grand Prix from the Top Gear guys on Amazon Prime? Is that what he does for his time? Watches them driving some cars?
Probably not. He seems like a pretty busy fucking dude. Probably doing some detective work. I mean, unless, maybe the Joker made an appearance on there, or blew it up, or killed someone on it. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. What new and different things do you want to offer fans of the superhero characters you're portraying, and what do you want to offer newcomers, including fans of your previous work? I don't know if I'm offering anything new, per se. I think as soon as you say something is new, someone else can point to their work and show you whatever you think you've been doing has been done well before. I will say I take a very personal approach to these comics, which is my approach to all stories I write. So if you like the work I do outside of trade comics, you'll like this. This book is full of many of the things I love, including drag queens. And so I hope other people will enjoy that part of the story. Isn't it so weird how drag queens are all of a sudden this hip commercial item? Don't we remember?
Paul.
Don't we remember the last time a drag queen was a big pop culture sensation?
I guess not. What was that?
Something about filth being your politics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that drag queen.
That was a beautiful film. It was a family film.
It was.
It's a film about family.
It's a film about family. That's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
What aspects of Harley Quinn were you interested in exploring and reimagining? Reimagining is the new hot term.
Does someone send Harley Quinn a bowel movement?
We'll find out. The thing I've always liked about Harley Quinn is that in my mind, she's not a simple hero. She's someone who could choose to make her part of the world a better place or sit back and watch it descend into chaos or be that chaos. I really got into the idea of choice or responding to the world instead of acting out of a sense of duty. To me, that connects with the real-world themes of young adult novels. A decision of how you're going to connect with the world and be a part of it. It doesn't really matter if there are choices that are good or bad. And that, we're writing for young, impressionable minds. That, we might want to tell them, hey, maybe, just maybe, dressing up like a clown lady and hanging out with a clown guy who murders people is probably not good for your mental health. You should not do that. And also, being a lesbian to a chick who murders people is also probably not good for your mental health. You should maybe consider not doing that. What kind of
Just consider it.
Just consider that. What kind of teenager is Harley Quinn in your book? What makes her voice unique? I pictured Harley Quinn as someone who likes to talk, and who is fine with her own take on how to describe the world around her, so she makes up words and just talks through whatever she's thinking in this very honest, free flow. She just makes up words. I mean, this is somebody who got a doctoral degree in an actual science and became a certified medical professional, which required complying with state, guidelines. So could she perhaps have been a teenager who, was focused on her education and focused on understanding things? And maybe she had some problems in her life that made her drawn towards mental health at an early age. What do you think about that, Jim? Do you think that's, maybe a more realistic, grounded version of that character?
Is it better than Suicide Squad?
Well, it is a Hot Topic adventure commercial, so
I think I'm liking that a whole lot more than this comic.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. How did a drag queen storyline develop in this book? As soon as I had the idea for this story, I knew I wanted to have drag queens in it. Partly because I'm obsessed with drag. Partly because it seemed a perfect fit for a character that's had such a theatrical style. Another thing that would be a perfect fit for that is, since plays, especially Shakespearean and ancient Greek plays, focus on mental health issues and form some of the architecture of how we talk about mental health, maybe Harley Quinn could have been a theater kid. And maybe that could have been what drew her towards the Harlequin costume. Again, I'm just saying, sure, drag queens, they're a hot topic item right now, but I don't know. Maybe she was just a kid who was into theater. How are you selling me on drag queens being interested? You've used the word intersectionality, not intersexuality, because that would be weird. Intersectionality when talking about this book. Can you expand upon that? Part of this book is about thinking about power and discrimination, which is an ongoing conversation between the three main characters. I would say this book directly addresses intersectionality. I would say it on one level is about a character trying to understand what power and discrimination mean. So, Jim, have you ever had to think about what power and discrimination mean?
No, that was pretty straightforward.
Power is I can do whatever I want, more or less. And discrimination is I can punish other people so they don't get to do whatever they want, more or less. Mm-hmm. And in particular, they don't get to do whatever they want because I don't like some group they're from. Mm-hmm. That doesn't really seem like a thing that you need to work really hard on understanding.
I think I got it.
Well, we got it.
I think we got it.
I think the answer to the question, what is wrong here, is never just about one thing. Because, of course, that's actually not what intersectionality is. Intersectionality talks about how the oppression of one group is interconnected with the oppression of all groups. And so the radical Muslim and the gay person, their oppression is connected, even though the radical Muslim, if he was given power, would push the gay person off a building.
I was just going to say something, make a joke about that, but you got me.
I got it.
I mean, it is. I guess it is connected. Their oppression is connected. One is oppressing the other.
But you know what? Let's talk about a clear and unambiguous case of oppression that has been a good topic for us. Jussie Smollett. The Chicago Police Union wants a federal probe into the Jussie Smollett case. Last month, Cook County State's Attorney Kimberly Fox recused herself from the Smollett case. I personally think that's because she's got the whole R. Kelly thing, because, he's buying people's children. I'm thinking maybe
Confirmed
she recused. The Chicago Police Union president alleges that the county's top prosecutor interfered with the investigation of Empire actor Jussie Smollett before recusing herself and wants the Justice Department to determine if she broke any laws. WLS-TV in Chicago reported that the Fraternal Order of Police president, Kevin Graham, wrote the Justice Department following reports that Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson to let the FBI investigate Smollett's allegation that he was attacked by two masked men.
Well, I got a question. What if the victim consents, though?
Well, then that's fine.
Okay.
After the former chief of staff to former First Lady Michelle Obama informed Fox that Smollett's family had concerns about the probe. So, I know it's shocking, but there's a political scandal in a police investigation in Chicago.
So I mean, the parents of a gay man are finally concerned about him getting probed. I'm sorry, I had to. It was just wide open. But Tish.
Exactly. A representative from the police kept the investigation, and Fox recused herself. Representatives from her office said at the time, out of an abundance of caution, the decision to recuse herself was made to address potential questions of impartiality based on familiarity with potential witnesses in the case. Her office charged Smollett with lying to police a whole bunch of times. Fox's office didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. So, I like how Jussie Smollett is a gift that keeps giving. Mm-hmm. And now, we're gonna look into our review section. So, American Gods has moved into their second episode. And it's kind of interesting because the second episode, not to spoil anything, ended with a Viking funeral for a car. It's kind of interesting how this show without a showrunner is getting produced together. So, Jim, I would recommend you maybe watch the first season of this in the public library.
I still got to catch up with the Orville.
You know, that's a problem with doing a pop culture show podcast is you just keep having to watch stuff. And, like, there's stuff sometimes I'll watch and I'll go, well, screw it. I don't want to really see this movie, but I do have to talk about something on the video content of the show. Oh, shoot. I guess I'll watch that.
I had to force myself to watch Captain Marvel. I'm glad I did, but, I mean,
there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And the thing I forced myself to do as homework actually had some interesting stuff, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. Netflix had a movie on called Triple Frontier, and it was getting pushed through the social media. So it's kind of interesting and fascinating. It's like an 80s and 90s styled action movie, but not in the way that The Expendables was. The Expendables was all about the glamour and glitz of the action movie star. This is about action movie stars who are actual, special forces people who went back to their normal lives in the military. One guy is trying to sell real estate, but bad about it and living on his pension. Another guy has a job going to military bases, telling people, don't quit the military. One guy's, a palooka in a MMA contest. Another guy's a pilot who's got a little bit of a problem. And another guy is Oscar Isaac, who's trying to stop cocaine dealers in Latin America. And he calls his buddies together for one last gig. And it's a fascinating story because it focuses on what matters in heroism, what matters in values, and it's really a realistic take on military guys and how they get together. And I think, why didn't they put this movie in a theater? And then I realized you can't really sell this in an international audience. It's a movie all about, murdering cocaine dealers. Do you think that's something that the Chinese want to show?
No.
Or the audiences in India?
So are you saying that's the future of movies that are kind of geared toward an American audience, or just throw them on Netflix?
Throw them on Netflix, throw them on Amazon Prime, because Amazon Prime will show you anything, which is a topic we're discussing a little.
Yeah.
But it had Ben Affleck in it, and it had Oscar Isaac, two guys who are major movie stars. It had an up-and-coming movie star who is a key guy on that biker show that used to be on FX, which I'm completely blanking on the name about, even though we just talked about it earlier in the show.
Anarchy?
Sons of Anarchy. So, it's...
We were just talking about Anarchy.
Yeah, so it's a show that has a lot of good talent in it. It's about American military guys going in, fighting a corrupt system, murdering a whole bunch of people, trying to escape, but in the process becoming corrupted, so they kind of have to pay with some violence and blood of their own, and then they regain their humanity at the end. It's a traditional American action movie. And it's just fascinating that we can't make those kind of movies in the studio system. It has to go to Netflix. Mm-hmm. Budget was pretty good. The music was weird, but it made sense with the tone that the movie was trying to set. So they played a lot of Metallica and a lot of heavy metal stuff, but it was meant to kind of make you feel like the music would say, yeah, this is kick-ass, huh? But the scene so contrasted with that kind of dissonance actually worked. So there was another cool bit of television on Netflix called Love, Death, Robots. It's a animated anthology series that was loosely inspired by heavy metal. But really, it was more loosely inspired by things like Amazing Story and The Twilight Zone, if we want to be super duper honest. There wasn't a lot of weird stuff like in Heavy Metal Magazine, and nothing as weird as the original Heavy Metal cartoon and movie series, which is held up in IP by somebody else. It had a lot of good stuff. It was fun to watch, but it's an anthology series that had a lot of interesting ideas that could have been a larger show, but they didn't run with them, any of them. Like, for example, they had a robot apocalypse thing where the punchline was, the apocalypse was we gave cats opposable thumbs. And then it was just over for us. There was a cool one where it was about a bunch of farmers with giant robots, and they had to fight aliens. It was fun. There was lots of fun little things in it. And there were lots of things that were trying to be too clever. Like they had the classic, a miniature world inside of something bit. It ended in an entirely different way than it normally ended. And kind of like, okay, you did a different ending, but you didn't do a different ending that was interesting. Why didn't you try to do an interesting ending? But it was a good show overall. But again, maybe longer anthology sequences would have been a more interesting take on that. Not a lot of shotgunning small ideas and hoping it works out for the best. And it had a lot of different animation styles, too. So that was another thing that was kind of odd to me. Like, there was no consistent animation. The animation, for the most part, worked for what they were talking about, but it would be like near realistic animation, and then CGI, and then really cartoony animation. Then that sort of like traced picture animation like they did from that Christmas movie Tom Hanks did with the Christmas Express, I think is what it's called.
Polar Express.
Polar Express, thank you. So it was all over the place with the style. It didn't really feel like it had its own identity, other than, hey, let's watch a bunch of sci-fi cartoons that are short. This is something that I think is definitely a product that can only work in a Netflix style of television. Because, you can watch like 25 of these while you're just sitting around the house and doing something.
Okay.
And now I'm going to go to Captive State, which was the movie I went to see in the theater. And I went to see it in the theater because, well, I need to see something. And it fit the time slot, so
I'm wasting my AMC movie pass for sure.
So the hook for Captive State is, what if the United States becomes occupied but by space aliens? Now, this is an interesting idea, but did they do anything interesting with it? The answer to that question is no. I would be talking about it in a much different tone of voice if the answer to that was yes. So, like you have a conspiracy by the aliens to take all of Earth's resources, which doesn't make any sense if you know anything about how science or science fiction works. And there's humans that are backstabbing other humans to be the last people off the planet in a lifeboat. But the aliens are also taking humans away in prisons for disobeying their rules. So it's like, what? Why are they doing that? So the movie basically breaks down to this kid whose father rebelled against the aliens when they first came into play. His brother rebelled against the aliens, and it was about how he finishes the job in rebelling against the aliens. And John Goodman plays a cop with a secret that's pretty obvious when you watch it and come forward. And, of course, the aliens get eat up. We have a Randy Quaid in a crop duster moment. And it was a whole bunch of interesting ideas, but none of them were satisfying. Like, there was a, secret cell of resistance to the aliens. But they're all people who knew each other and knew the main character. And they reveal how they know the main character, but nobody in the movie acts like, oh, hey, you're somebody who I knew before aliens took over the planet. We were friends. No, it's just weird. So, before we talk about our piece of resistance for the night, let's talk about a great movie, Freddy Got Fingered, and how we've created a Disney princess who doesn't want money, doesn't want jewels. She just wants to give you a BJ.
Yeah, she just wants to suck some cock. That's all she wants.
Yeah. And I think that's really a progressive Disney princess for the current age, and it's very stunning and brave.
Very stunning.
She knows what she wants, and she's sex positive. Mm-hmm. And we can make a nice literary work about that. Mm-hmm. You know, unlike the movie,
she fits in the intersectional.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she is handicapped.
Exactly. And you know, Tom Green's character is clearly handicapped in that movie.
In other ways.
You know, I think we need to rewatch. Have we done Freddy Got Fingered for one of these little retro movie reviews?
Maybe we should do it next week.
Along with watching garbage from Amazon, because Amazon will put on anything.
Yeah, well,
so
that's our contrast between a good movie and a bad movie.
So, related to Amazon, Amazon putting on anything, we watched Deathstalker 1, which was people moving around and rapes happening, and the bad guy gets defeated by all the magical MacGuffins just showing up at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. The end. But they made a sequel to that movie called Deathstalker 2. So let's
hold on. I can't put enough quotation marks around the word sequel, so I'm not even going to try.
So the way I've read the story is this was like a joint Argentinian Roger Corman production. And the Argentinians ran the first Deathstalker, which was a little rapey. Mm-hmm. A lot rapey.
This so Roger,
rapey. It was not rapey at all. And the second one was made by Roger Corman, who was like, you know, I could have bought Conan. Screw it. Let's make a funny Conan movie and use Deathstalker. And so they hired a new director who didn't watch the first Deathstalker, though he did reuse some footage from the first Deathstalker. Didn't hire any of the same actors or actresses. And we had a movie that had a plot.
What?
Things happen. Yes, things happen. It had a plot. It wasn't just people wandering around incoherently.
I was really surprised when I watched this, and I was like, oh, they have character and motivations and things to do and a mission. And arcs.
And a character didn't randomly turn into a child for no reason.
Right.
No, it was, hey, I'm a princess who's secretly a pauper. Well, you know, because they made a succubus into a clone of me to take over my kingdom, and I need a hero to help me. And let's go get a slacker, you know, sarcastic Generation X Conan type to be my hero, and that's Deathstalker 2. Which is kind of how they open it, is I will get my revenge at Deathstalker 2. Which is
a nice little pun.
Which arguably may be the high point of the movie. you should open on your high point of the movie.
You didn't like the wrestling scene? I thought that was the most entertaining part.
It went on it went a little long. It could have been a little quicker.
It almost seemed like someone had saw Deathstalker 2 10 years before, and then someone was like, hey, we gave you the rights to this movie, but you can't watch the movie before you make it. And he was like, oh, well, I also just saw Bill and Ted recently. Why not kind of incorporate this kind of tone of Bill and Ted into this movie that I sort of remember from 10 years ago?
But
that's the kind of feel that I got from that movie.
Yeah, but it was interesting how the bar fight scene from the first Deathstalker, they recycled footage for that for the second Deathstalker.
Yeah.
Which was kind of weird. I didn't know how I felt about that.
And I liked his fighting style, which comprised about 60% of flipping over every table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Deathstalker had a chance to, get a kingdom and wealth. And he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to just go off and adventure some more. And that's, of course, how Deathstalker becomes a legend that's talked about thousands of years later. And eventually, wink, wink, they'll make it into a movie. Ah! I mean, I think the general concept of this could make an interesting, fun movie. Like, you know, you get a Dwayne Johnson or you get a Jason Momoa and the right kind of director. You'd kind of need someone like James Gunn to do a Sword and Sorcery. I'm not sure James Gunn would do that, but you would need somebody like that. And, yeah, you just have a goofy but serious when it needs to be Sword and Sorcery movie. And, you know, you could make fun of, you know, did you just assume my gender and things like that? Although people would probably get mad at that movie. So that means it would be going to Netflix or Amazon.
Yeah.
So probably more
Amazon.
Well, no, because remember, because Amazon canceled Conan because it was not PC enough.
Oh.
I mean, I think you can get away with a little bit more of that at Netflix, but not a whole lot. Yeah. And
I think the co-star of this film, the girl, who I will refer to as the girl, because I don't remember anybody's name except Deathstalker. I think it's interesting how her acting style was. Interesting is the only word I can think of, which consists of anytime she spoke, her eyes would just like get bigger, and that was it. That was it. That's how she acted. Like anytime she said something, her eyes would just like blow up like Lucy.
You know, that could have been
raising her eyebrows over and over again. That's acting.
That could have been a fun callback in there.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if they had to if they got stuck somewhere, and in order for them to get out, they had to eat a bunch of pieces of candy, and
or grapes,
and mouth was filled with bonbons.
Or they could have done the grape scene where they were having to make wine.
Oh yeah, that could have been a thing.
And
he could have came in and said "Hey, you have some explaining to do."
Exactly. But this was fun.
Oh, Deathstalker, let me be a part of your battle.
Now, there's a Deathstalker 3 and 4 that aren't yet on Amazon. So we can't continue the Deathstalker saga.
No.
I'm curious whether Deathstalker 3 and 4 feature yet another actor and director who've never seen the other two movies. That could be a pioneering way to do filmmaking. We're going to do a movie series, and we're going to have different directors, and they're not going to watch each other's movies, and they're just going to write sequels to each other. I mean, who would do something like that? I mean, it'd be like you have J.J. Abrams followed up by Rian Johnson. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Isn't that weird how things that used to be terrible things that bad movie studios done are now done by Disney?
Yeah.
Like how all the pillars of power in the world are just not caring. They're not committing to the bit, and they're not doing a good job.
Yep.
So that's our recording in progress for this week.
We do need to figure out what movie we're going to watch next week, aside from Freddy Got Fingered.
Yeah, aside from Freddy Got Fingered.
I'm more than happy to watch.
We will have to watch that Red Letter Media video to get the screen of terrible movies that are all on Amazon.
Yeah.
Admittedly,
pickle picking. We got pickle picking.
You know, as much as I didn't want to go straight to pickle picking, I mean, it's the one that is viscerally burned into your mind. You know, it makes you want to go watch it.
Let's do pickle picking.
Yeah. I mean, Deathstalker 1 stood out because I remember watching the Red Letter Media videos when they reviewed Deathstalker. So that stood out for me with that, but pickle picking.
Pickle picking seems like something that would be on the Wheel of Misfortune.
And here's something interesting with how we put our show together. Most of this stuff came together yesterday and today on my doing show prep with social media. So I'm actually going to probably start again for show prep content. There's been a whole lot of movement going on with the case of Vic Mignogna, but there's not enough stuff where social. It's nothing I can like actually have in a coherent story of like saying, yeah, X, Y, and Z is happening.
Just a bunch of disparate weird things happening, I guess. Oh. Did we lose Larry?
No, we didn't lose Larry.
Okay.
So that's recording him in progress.
So Freddy got fingered and pickle picking.
It's weird.
Almost like the same title.
It's weird because, you know, it kind of feels like there's a thematic tie there. I've not watched Pickle Picking, so I don't know if there's some deeper connection.
God help us.
God help us if there is.
God help us all. Anyways, yep, I guess this is our recording in progress for the week.
And worms, I guess.
Worms.